Hi, Kirsten Chick here, author of Nutrition Brought to Life and creator of the Nutrition Brought to Life podcast. In this series, I'm talking to some of the inspiring people I've met who also bring nutrition to life. And today I have the pleasure of catching up with Sally Duffin, health writer, nutritional therapist, and author of Natural Nutrition for Perimenopause, What to Eat to Feel Good and Stay Sane. Sally, we met many years ago when we were both nutrition consultants for the same supplements company. And I've always liked your really clear, really down-to-earth approach. And now you've written this really fantastic book on nutrition for perimenopause. I think I read it in one sitting. It's brilliant. But before we talk about the book, how did you get interested in nutrition in the first place?
Wow. Well, thank you, Kirsten. That's a lovely introduction. I got into nutrition when I got a job in a health food store in Central York many years ago. In fact, it was 1999. I'd always kind of had a bit of a fringe interest in drinking herbal teas, natural remedies, things like that. But at the time I was selling underwear and the shop shut and I needed another job. And this job opportunity came up in this health food shop. And I just loved it from the first day. So being surrounded by natural foods and all the different supplements, and there was lots of training available from the different supplement companies. They were really good at training us in sort of phytotherapy, homeopathy, the vitamins and minerals, everything like that. And at the time, the shop was quite a small shop in Central York. And every now and then you'd get a quiet moment and I'd just sit behind the till and read the textbooks. And after I'd done all the different courses that were available, I had a year out when I had my son, and I realised if I went back to work, then I wanted to go further than just, being a shop assistant that knew about the products. So I put myself through a distance learning course, which ended up being a BSc in nutritional medicine, and then it's all gone from there.
Fantastic. And then you practiced as a nutritional therapist for how many years?
I did. I had to practice for 11 years. Lovely.
And you're not practicing anymore. You're focusing on health writing and workshops.
Yeah, that's right. My clinic, it closed the week before the first lockdown, which was entirely coincidental and ever so weird because I was moving out of my office as all the rumours were flying around about we're going to be in lockdown. So I kind of ended up back at home with all the paperwork, everything that had been in my office.
Wow.
Just kind of finding homes for that in my house. So I have still seen a few clients that I'd been working with long term and seeing them on Zoom during the lockdown and things. But yeah, now the main focus is on the writing and the workshops and doing talks and talking to wonderful people like yourself.
Yay. And you're so good at the writing as well. So what do you enjoy about the health writing? What makes you really want to focus on that?
Oh, thank you. I just love writing, actually, and if somebody gives me any topic to write about, I'm quite happy to just get immersed in the research. I really enjoy pulling ideas together and translating what can sometimes be quite complex ideas into understandable formats for people, so it's much more accessible. So empowering people to understand things about their health and well-being through writing and trying to communicate that in a very clear way. That's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, and that's what you're really good at. And I think that's a really important thing for us nutritional therapists generally, because we get to go down the wormholes of research. I tweeted yesterday about a wormhole I'd gone down in what happens to dietary fibre when you cook it normally or in a pressure cooker, or when you soak it or ferment it or freeze it, and just hours in this wormhole to come up with this kind of 2-sentence answer to a client's question.
Yes, yeah, I know what you mean.
So do you love those wormholes? Do they do your head in? What's your relationship to the science?
Ooh, sometimes they can totally do my head in, especially if you're finding completely contradictory information or research that's poor quality, actually, and doesn't really say anything. So people have gone to this huge effort of producing a paper, and you read it and you think, well, that's taught me nothing. And in fact, you're your research was totally inconclusive. It's furthered us in no way at all. So that can be frustrating, but every now and then you'll find some papers that are just amazing, really well written, and they explain things very well. They've got good links to other papers, and it's just a joy, because then you can feel confident in what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's this confidence in what we're saying, and in what you're saying in the writing that you do and in your book. There's this perception in parts of society that nutrition is just a load of rubbish and there's no evidence behind it, and it's just people trying to sell stuff.
Yeah, I think we constantly come up against that, and it's not helped by the fact that a lot of people in mainstream medicine still say those things. And I'm sure you've had clients who've been told by their doctor that food will have no effect on their symptoms whatsoever. And that just makes me bang my head against the wall. It's like saying that you could put toothpaste in a car and it would still run perfectly well. Of course, food affects how we function. So yeah, I think it is really important that we do this and try and demystify a lot of it, make sense of a lot of the sensationalist headlines, because a lot of the media will jump on a tiny little soundbite from a piece of research that can be totally skewed and totally out of context to what even the study was or what the study findings were, but they'll jump on something, blow it up into a huge headline. And again, we have that whole cycle of nutrition makes no difference, supplements are just a waste of money, you're just in it to make money out of people, and you just have to start climbing that hill again of trying to emphasize the credibility of what we do and the importance of what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think it's really important that there are people out there like you doing the research and presenting the information in a really grounded, down to earth way. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
And what kind of places does your writing appear in? So there's your book that we'll come back to, we'll get there eventually, but where else do you write?
Various different companies at the minute. So like you and I both wrote for the supplement company. I've written for an American website that has a bit more of a plant-based slant on what they do. I've worked for various different companies. I did a set of articles most recently for the British and International Golf Greenkeepers Association. They were interested in information for their staff well-being, so I produced some articles for them. It can be anybody, any kind of company. At the minute I'm doing some more for, it's another supplement company, but again, the articles are not specifically about their products. It's much more broad. It's about the health issues and using foods and nutrients in those kinds of ways. So it's really broadening out from what they do.
Mm-hmm. And it's lovely, isn't it, that there are so many different communities in lots of different places, like the greenkeepers and unexpected communities where you can just go and say, yeah, I'll talk to you about this and I'll write things for you about that.
Absolutely, yeah, it's great. And also writing for the therapist as well, because so many of us get into doing this and we get very, very busy with our practices, and then you just think, oh, my blog's looking really neglected on my website or something like that. So I do some articles, ghost writing, so it's with their name on, but I've produced them for the therapist just to help with their web presence, their information sharing as well. I think that's important.
Brilliant, excellent. And then your workshops, and you're on the radio, am I right in thinking that?
Every now and then, yeah. Every now and then I'll pop up on local radio or something like that. Yeah, whenever it's been one of those sensationalist headlines, that'll be the hook for the story, and they'll go, right, we'll talk to a nutritionist. So then,
yeah, I've done a couple of those.
Yeah. You're there to try and make sense of it for people. So
So and this is it. This is something that you've said a few times now, making sense of it for people. So in terms of bringing nutrition to life, there's various aspects of that on there. There's actually making it intelligible and sense for people, and also providing people with the tools to actually bring it into their everyday lives. So that's knowledge, but it's also things like recipes and food tips that you're also really, really good at on your social media. So do you enjoy that aspect of it as well, putting recipes together? And
I have to say, I am not a recipe person. I bow down to you for that, because you are recipe queen. No, to be honest, I'm pretty hopeless in the kitchen when it comes to baking and things like that. You do not want me to bake a cake. I've made terrible things.
I don't
terrible
bake.
things.
Baking is science. No. Cooking and baking are two separate things. With baking, you have to weigh things and get the temperature right. And
no, it's too much of a dark art for me, whereas I'm much more, give me one pan and some random ingredients and I will come up with something. So it's all very
exactly. And I think that's what's helpful for people, is because that's really simple and it's quick and it's not kind of MasterChef, is it? So I think that makes it more accessible.
Yeah, and it's also knowing that you can do things with frozen vegetables, for example, because again, there's this whole kind of myth that we all eat wonderful homegrown organic foods every single meal. Of course we do. We go and pull things from the garden and we go and make wonderful meals, when actually we're just human like everybody else, and we're on the clock, and it's like, God, I've got half an hour to make tea for people. What can I do? So it's getting the frozen vegetables out, things like that. Taking shortcuts wherever you can, and it all helps. It really does.
There's another guest in this podcast series, Kate Hall, who is all about the freezer. So I'm sure you'll enjoy the sessions with her. We've got a couple of interviews with her.
Brilliant.
Okay, so we can use our freezers a lot, but also one thing that you're really good at on your social media is putting out messages about what's in season right now. So it's the 26th of April as we are recording this. What's in season right now, Sally, and what can people do with that?
Oh, lovely. So at the minute in the UK, we've got things like nettles growing wild, so new fresh nettles, and they're great. Wear rubber gloves, of course, when you're going out to pick them, and pick them in an area where you're not likely to get dogs weeing on them. But they're everywhere, they really are. So picking some nettles and adding those to soup. So they go really well with onion, potato, perhaps some broccoli or some kale or something like that. Another green, but chucking them into a soup, they won't sting your mouth, but the cooking gets rid of the sting. And they've got lovely quercetin, vitamin C in there. You've got some fibre there. So fresh wild nettles is very good. We've got asparagus coming in now. So I know asparagus is available all year round. It's full on miles and miles and miles, terrible carbon footprint. But the UK asparagus season is beginning. So hopefully you might find some local asparagus. And that's one of the best sources of folic acid, the folate for us. What else we've got? We've got the new potatoes. So your new little salad potatoes coming into season. I've got chives growing in my garden, and they're really easy to grow on the windowsill as well. So even if you haven't got a garden, then growing some chives, chop some chives with some spring onions again, also coming into season, and make a nice potato salad. You could use oil on there or some mayonnaise. I love mayonnaise, so mine has full fat mayonnaise on there on the potato salad, and rhubarb. Rhubarb's coming in as well. So, and again, if you've got quite a bit to pick, or you buy quite a big bunch from the market, it freezes quite well as well once you've cooked it. So you can get that out. And I chuck apples usually in there, or if it's a bit later in the year when strawberries are coming in, strawberries and rhubarb go really well together.
Wow. Okay, some really mouth-watering tips in there. Thank you for that, Sally. That's brilliant. Now, I keep saying that you've written this brilliant book on menopause, and we are going to come back to that. We're actually going to come back to that in our next episode with you, because we are very lucky to have Sally for 2 episodes of the Nutrition Brought to Life podcast. Thank you so much for that. In the meantime, your website is nutritioninyork.co.uk.
That's the one. Yep.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. And I'm really looking forward to talking with you more about your book.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Thanks for listening to the Nutrition Brought to Life podcast. There's also a Facebook group you can join called Nutrition Brought to Life Podcast Community, where you can share useful insights and recipes, ask questions, and get more support on your nutrition journey. If you haven't read it yet, there's so much more in the book, Nutrition Brought to Life, and you can find out more about me at kirstenchick.com.